Hello everyone, this is Startups in 60 Seconds. I'm Harry Palmer and today I'm joined by Ashley Payne from the company The Code Zone. So Ashley, if you'd like to introduce yourself and tell us what The Code Zone is all about.
My name is Ashley Payne and I'm the co-founder and the chief operating officer of The Code Zone. The Code Zone is an interactive, in-person and online platform, uses a very simple drag and drop code block style interface. The mission is to have to increase skills, interest and awareness in coding, and to do that in a fun and socially engaging way.
So how did you come to found The Code Zone?
So I originally met my co-founder, Paul Allington, through another business venture that I'm involved in. We had some requirements in that business, technical requirements that needed to be sort of met, and I'd been recommended Paul by a couple of people as someone that was that may be able to assist with that. Through that, turned out that Paul had children at the same age as my children, and my wife actually became friendly with Paul's wife. So it's sort of like there became a family sort of friendship there, and regularly would meet up with Paul to sort of have catch-ups around how work was and what was going on. And he'd mentioned a few times that he was involved with his son's school at that age. His son was about 6 years old, and the school his child was at had some coding clubs which he'd been asked to help by the school, and he kept on pointing out how the clubs were really clunky. The materials they were getting given from the company that they were working with were very sort of like stagnant, and he was struggling to find ways to get the children interested. And there were also other challenges like the technology and how are they doing it. The school were doing it on these really tiny, like 8-9 inch netbook style things, which were really difficult for the children to use. So I said to him, well, I might be able to get involved and help provide some equipment through this other venture that I'm involved in, which is a tech recycling company. And we could, maybe chat together and see how it could be done better. So that went on for a period. And as we spoke over time, it became clear that this wasn't just something that was experienced in this school. It was actually a number of schools where it was really the children that were interested in it and they were really passionate about this sort of thing, or even if they just wanted to explore it, weren't having the opportunity to do so because the teachers didn't know what they were doing, the equipment wasn't very good, the sort of structure the teachers were trying to look for and being provided just wasn't there. So we agreed to start something which was the Code Zone, outside of schools as an extracurricular activity to try and meet the sort of needs of the children that weren't being met in this school and other local areas. So it really just went on from there. We started this initial club. We then ran these things called sandboxes, which is a term in development which is used for something like an enclosed environment where you can mess around in. So if you have a sandbox game or something, you play within that area and you're not breaking your campaigns or anything outside of it. And it's the same with the sandbox. Like we had this idea of people being able to come along, children and adults, and be able to mess around with the equipment and actually enjoy it. And that became really, really successsul. And we had a couple of sessions that really got not just parents involved, but children involved, but also the parents involved. And it was amazing to see sort of like this spark being met, being ignited in sort of like the creativity of these people. So we continued expanding it out of that into many clubs. So we moved out of a town called Saffron Walden where we're based, into Cambridge, which is a really competitive area. We started working with the Science Centre in Cambridge as a sort of like a partnership to run clubs in their centre, which has been hugely successful. Also working with community centres in the south of Cambridge, and then expanding into other satellite towns of Cambridge like Haverhill, where we were able to sort of meet different demographics and work with different types of children and different sort of like different age groups and backgrounds. So it's been a journey from this casual conversation, identifying a problem as most businesses do, having a conversation and then creating a solution to the problem. COVID-19 obviously caused some problems with continuing the clubs, with sort of everything being locked down. At that point, the online platform was an obvious direction to move into, take this successful model and what we'd learned and move it online, which there was no one in the space currently is doing, where they're sort of pulling together all the social aspects of sort of like how you can work collaboratively with coding and create games and share things like that. It's still quite unique, and also running it so the platform has a sense of progression. It's heavily built around gamification, so there is a real structure of quests, like a flow, a real understanding of where the user is going on the platform. All those sort of technologies, modern web technologies and sort of engagement technologies are being applied to the platform. And we're hoping, obviously, that has the same success as the clubs themselves have.
So what about other members of the founding team? How did you find them and bring them all together?
Originally, Paul and myself were doing most of what was required to get it moving forward, which is in terms of, aside from working on the business, so developing the applications and developing the sort of the structures of the business, which Paul and I are still very much the people doing. The other main role was creating the content for the children. So that's essentially the challenges. So we have this idea that every week we are providing challenges for the children, which come in two real variations, which are a code it challenge, we call it, where the user has to use this simple block based interface to complete the code to ultimately play and continue to build a game, or some sort of like it could be like a puzzle, it could be a variety of sort of things based on the sort of rotation of content that we use. And the other type is a hack. So taking something that's already built, so a hack in a positive sense, not in a negative one, but taking something that's already built and then altering its functionality. So that could be to take a game that's complete, but modifying it to give yourself different functionality and powers to sort of go beyond what the game has set in terms of the objectives, doing things like that. So really, a lot of the older children, they love doing that sort of thing, like taking something and absolutely, in some cases, butchering it to pieces and turning it into something different. So the content was one of the main parts that we were having to, every week. One of the promises we have to people on the platform in the clubs is that every week there will be new content that will be produced to keep you engaged. So we have a very good member of our team on board doing this for us right now. His name is Tom. He's responsible for doing all of the content, putting together all of the video content on the website as well, putting together all of the help tips and all of the sort of the sort of things that feed back to the user if they can't find a particular code block. Where can they find it? All of that comes from Tom. So he is a absolutely essential member of the team, and to be honest, we wouldn't be in the position we're in now without having him on board. And he came post-grad, so university, in politics, degree in politics, so looking for something to do in technology, completely different from his degree. He came to us originally on a part-time basis, but he really enjoyed the role so much, and we felt he was such a valued member of the team that we wanted to open up a full-time position for him and really give him the ability to just go forward with creating these sort of crazy games that he puts out every week. So we also have Megan, who works on the social outreach, which is a really important part of the business to make contact with the users, keep them engaged on social media platforms, to create interesting blog content and sort of articles. We're really hot on the sort of areas of minority and marginalized communities in the coding world. So women, for example, we've done some work and intend to do a lot more on how can we get more young girls involved in the code zone and better represented in the sort of the world of coding. We're proud to say that we have a very good number of girls in our clubs, and obviously we really look to try and make sure that our content is suitable not just for sort of like boys, but girls and anyone that comes along. So it's like this is going to be interesting to anyone who's part of the code zone. And then finally we have Chris, who's a new member of our team, but he's taking the lead in the actual marketing strategy and working with companies to sort of get the message of the code zone out there in sort of more of a direct one-to-one relationships, as well as setting in place some of the larger strategic goals that we have. So we've got a really good team, really good founding team. Everyone's very trusted and they're all really enthusiastic, and we all believe that we're sort of building a product that is actually going to make a difference in people's lives. rather than just something that is a consumer platform or a platform just to sort of, keep the children busy for a few hours with the parents. We all believe it's something that's actually adding value and providing a real learning experience for children.
So I presume that initial clients were your existing attendees of the physical club. So who else do you plan to target other than the initial community to sort of grow this platform?
You're exactly correct. The initial people using the platform and were the individuals that were part of clubs. I mean, that was for us a real positive and still is, because when we were going through the process of building the platform and beta testing it, it was really important to sort of get the feedback from people that had an understanding of what the Code Zone was about and what they were doing in the clubs. So therefore it translated to the experience online. So without that, it would be, would have been really challenging for us to have built the platform and refined it in a way where we've got to now. I mean, the reality is though, unfortunately, that it's quite challenging to expand in the club sector at the moment due to COVID-19. And also the overheads and costs of the clubs are drastically higher compared to the onboarding of an individual on the website is obviously much lower compared to, you want to get a new club member from a different area, you have to set that whole club up. You've got to employ staff, you've got to train people, you've got to buy the equipment. So really it's us putting a message online and trying to make it clear what the Code Zone are doing. So that the main way in which we're trying to draw users in at the moment is through our social marketing and sort of like a online marketing based on target demographics, which are focusing on activities after schools. I mean, with the sort of the tiered COVID system, we've already got a number of people from the upper tier, the third tier, saying like, are there things that my children can do? I don't feel comfortable being them out with them being out at the moment. Can they do these things online? Half term, we're focusing on a lot of people that are talking about what can my children do during half term. That's going to be offering them people thinking about screen time and like sitting in front of a computer. What's something that's not just a passive experience, but like an interactive experience where they're playing and building a game, so they're meeting their needs in that sense of using a computer and enjoying themselves in that way, but they're also getting real value from it. So really tapping into that and focusing on what the real values of the Code Zone are, and giving people that we aren't able to reach in the clubs the ability to come onto the platform. And that's how we intend to expand out of where we are at the moment. Obviously there are things we can talk about later, like with schools and other places that we can work with that really will grow our user base in a big way.
So in terms of vision for the business, is there anything else you'd like to mention beyond expanding the client base?
I think it's probably relevant to mention the schools as a big part of the strategy. We're applying for follow-up funding in terms of being able to focus on this as a real sort of main core of the company moving forward. In schools at the moment, as I mentioned earlier on, coding clubs and sort of extracurricular in school, in sort of in term time and in school activities are thin on the ground. So we believe that we can use the sort of events and social and structured challenge and tutorials parts of our system to integrate into the schools and the curriculum to meet the needs of not just the pupils but the teachers, in sense of that there is an idea that this topic is maybe a bit more complex than it necessarily is. There are massive crossovers in what we do to maths, even literacy as well, with the fact that you are dealing with words and really understanding how do these words, like what do they translate to in terms of what the purpose they're doing in a code sense. And also the other ideas of like creativity. I mean, coding is an extremely creative activity, especially when you're doing it in a visual sense. You have to come up with a concept, an idea. You have to really understand how to then apply that idea. I'm a developer myself, make computer games for fun as a hobby, and I'd never really considered myself a creative person, and it's become clear when using code that is just another medium, another sort of way to express creativity. So we can see massive value in the schools for this, and massive sort of opportunity for children that at the moment are not able to maybe do things after school, or maybe this is something they'd like to do in school, to use our platform and really benefit from it. And then outside of that, in the UK, we have our eye on the international expansion. We'd like to be able to take this product outside the UK and be able to sort of use it and grow it in other regions, America, Canada, Australia. So there are huge opportunities down the line once we've really got a foothold over in the UK.
As I'm sure you know, there are a lot of course hosting platforms out there. So why did you decide to create your own platform from scratch? And is there anything about the tech that's particularly notable?
It's interesting because when we looked at lots of things, we don't consider the Code Zone to be necessarily a course-based platform. So
right.
Take something, for example, like Udemy or whatever, where it's delivering content in a way where you're taking that in the way in which they're sort of delivering it from lecture to lecture, and sort of you're going through a syllabus. Because the fact that we're not that type of business, but we're also not just an app that can sort of use a white label solution that someone else has come up with that we can sort of smash ourselves into. It was quite clear that we needed to have our own platform, and the core of the platform. So when I talk about this block-based interface, it's actually built off of a bit of software called Blocky, which is a Google, it's a bit of open source software built by Google, which has then been refined into a product that most people will know as Scratch. It's a programming language, all open source, so absolutely available for anyone to take and as we have done, modify. So the fact our sort of interface is underpinned by this as a technology, we needed to sort of build our functionality over the top of this. So we have, through almost reverse engineering this large code base and project that was done by Google, we've create hooks and sort of abilities to interact with it, to determine when the user has written a bit of code, when the user has completed a bit of code, how much time the user has spent on moving this block around. These sort of things that really get the data back to us to get an understanding on what that person is doing. So, I mean, there is no other platform out there that we could have used that would allow us to deliver all of that, plus the functionality for the lobbies. We've got to have moderation, administration for the chat. We've got to also handle the content delivery system. So in terms of the weekly updates, we've got to also have the code walkthroughs, which are like the tutorial sections. So it's it's a really unique platform. I think every part of it has been touched and modified and improved to fit our purpose. And it would be we wouldn't be able to do our model and our vision justice if we'd just taken someone else's platform and put the content onto that. I think it would be not the experience that we're looking for.
So finally, are there any interesting anecdotes you'd like to mention, or any challenges you had to overcome in setting up the platform?
One of the main challenges as of right now would probably be the fact that we have this reality that the children are the users on the platform. However, the parents are the people playing for the platform. So there's an interesting sort of situation that we're essentially producing a product for children that's aimed at children, but we need to make it clear to the parents that their child is seeing real value in this. And the same for the schools. I mean, it's slightly easier with the schools because this is essentially their job to do this. But for parents, it's really busy, really busy. They've got lots of other considerations, and budgets for most families are tight, so we do appreciate that. And we've really put the pricing of the platform in line with that. So I think that's one of the main challenges that we're sort of facing and have faced, is to get that exactly right. We've overcome that, or are overcoming that, by making sure that when the children level up, as in there's a leveling system, or if they're receiving rewards, how that relates back to the parents. So the parents are able to see that feedback of my child is spending time on here, they are improving, they are clearly enjoying it, they are interacting. So that's definitely something that has been a challenge. And the other sort of challenging consideration, I would say, is this idea that we are catering for a particular type of age of child. It's our wish and sort of goal to not just have children that are of the age group of 6 to 14, for example, that are using a visual style drag and drop interface, but something that's more of a higher level programming language. Say Python, for example, is something that people talk a lot about. So to take the platform and to build upon what we have as a concept, but to translate that to sort of older children, and even anyone who's, you know, you or I, if we wanted to do that, to, like, you know, just have fun and learn. It's not a challenge that we necessarily have overcome because we're not doing it yet, but it's something that we foresee as a challenge. So everything we've done up to this date has been, you know, had to be put through the lens of what can this look like when we move up to trying to engage with older children. We don't want to have these split products. We want it to all be one system. I think the final thing would be a challenge that we have of trying to make this work for schools and really get the product into schools, but considering the constraints around budget and sort of the issues around COVID-19, where we have to be aware that maybe children, it's not desirable for the school to have multiple children from different year groups in the same room doing an activity, and also the considerations around the fact that there is potentially going to be further upcoming challenges with sort of like the way the schools have to manage their money and their staff, with their staff maybe not being available. So we're trying to look at getting local companies involved and really champion the system and allow us to help get it into schools where it is you know, extremely cost effective and sort of like you know, we're not just selling it as a product, but we're really making it a product that the community can support, therefore, you know, supporting the children in their area and giving them opportunity to do something when maybe now is not a fantastic time for children, unfortunately, due to the realities of the way things are.
Thank you, Ashley Payne, for taking the time to be interviewed today, and thank you for watching this video. And remember, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the interview.